Alright, welcome back to Skyrim Survival. We're getting through all the books here in Whiterun, Dragonsreach, which I read through that shelf, so we were just starting to get onto this shelf. Read that one, didn't read that one, I can't read that one yet. Mysterious Akaviri. Did I read that one? I've not read that one yet. Or no, I did read it. Why didn't it mark off? Yeah, I read this last time. For some reason I just didn't mark it off. Okay. Next we have The Cabin in the Woods. Volume 2. I don't know if there's a Volume 1, but this is only labeled as The Cabin in the Woods. So if I do find a Volume 1, I'll just make a note of that to double check if there is a Volume 1, but maybe not. Cabin in the Woods, Volume 2, as told by Mogen, son of Molag. Late one night, a few seasons ago, a soldier was returning home after several bloody battles. He decided he would save some gold and decided to cross the pine forest on foot. The first day of his journey was rather uneventful. The soldier stuck to the main path and kept a brisk pace. When it started getting dark, he set up his bedroll, built a small fire, and cooked up some rabbit he had caught. A fine day indeed, he thought to himself as he fell asleep. Partway through the evening, the soldier was woken up by some soft sobbing in the distance. He grabbed his sword, assuming it to be a bandit trick, but pretended to sleep so he could get the jump on them. After a few minutes, the sobbing started moving away from his camp until he could no longer hear it. For the rest of the night, he slept with one eye open. Day 2, the soldier awoke from what rotten sleep he could catch and started off through the woods at a quicker pace, intending to put distance between himself and whatever he had heard last night. As the day went on, it began to rain heavy, so the soldier built himself a little shelter for the evening so he could remain dry while he slept. It took him a little longer to fall asleep with thoughts of the previous night fresh in his mind, but he eventually slept. This time he awoke to sobbing that sounded like it was right outside his shelter. The soldier grabbed his sword and crawled out of the shelter. In front of the fire he saw the back of a ghostly woman sobbing into her hands. The soldier mustered his courage, asked her what was wrong. No answer. He began to slowly approach, but before he could reach her, she turned and screamed at him. The ghostly woman raised an axe and began to run at the soldier, disappearing before she made contact. The soldier took off into the night, with just his sword in hand. He ran until the first light of dawn, where he started down the road again, as fast as he could move. The third day was bright and sunny, but the soldier, rattled and sleepless, didn't even notice. He moved as fast as he could, trying to get through the forest before nightfall. As darkness began to fall, he saw a cabin just off the road and thought to himself it would be a good place to hunker down for the night. After arriving at the cabin, he spent some time blocking the doors and windows. Nothing would get in. Despite his preparations, he could not sleep. He sat in what used to be the cabin's bedroom, staring at the barricaded door, shaking. Eventually, he could keep his eyes open no longer and fell asleep. This time he awoke to laughing on the other side of the barricaded door. It sounded like the woman from before, but he refused to believe it was her. The soldier burst through the barricaded door into the main room to find the ghostly woman from the night before staring at the ground, laughing hysterically with axe in hand. He began to relentlessly attack the ghostly woman, but he could feel his strikes were less effective. He used a scroll of firebolt which drew a scream from her, and she exploded, disappearing. The ordeal was over. The ghost was gone. The soldier slept when well that night, and the next day made excellent distance through the woods. As the sun began to set, he came out on the other side of the forest and looked back, remembering the days before. As he turned and started walking away from the woods, he could swear he heard the sobbing again. Ooh, spooky. Alright. The Alduin-Akatosh dichotomy. Alright. Book 7, okay, the Alduin-Akatosh dichotomy. Book 7 of 2920, the last year of the First Era, by Alexander Simon, High Priest of the Akatosh Chantry, Wayrest. As High Priest of the Akatosh Chantry, I have dedicated my life to the service of the Great Dragon. He who was first at the beginning, he who is greatest and most powerful of all the divines, he who is the very embodiment of infinity. I am, quite obviously, a man of deep and unwavering faith, but not blind faith. For I am also a man of scholarly endeavors, and have always valued education and the pursuit of truth in all its forms. And so I have had the honor and privilege of making it my life's work to discover the truth about Akatosh in all of our beloved divines' incarnations. Throughout the civilized world, and I refer not only to the Empire, but to every nation on Great Nirn that has embraced the virtues of learning and letters, the Great Dragon is worshipped. Usually the highest of the divines is referred to as Akatosh. But what some may not be aware of is that he is occasionally referred to by two other names as well. The Aldmer refer to Akatosh as Oriel. The Nords call him Alduin. These names come up repeatedly in certain ancient texts, and in each one it is clear that the deity in question is none other than he whom we call Akatosh. Yet there are those who believe, even in this enlightened age, that this is not so, that the regional interpretations of Akatosh are not interpretations of Akatosh at all. Rather, they are references to altogether different deities, deities who may or may not share the same aspects or be the great dragon at all. Many Altmer of Somerset Isle worship Oriel, who is the soul of Anuiel, who in turn is the soul of Anu, the everything. But if you ask the High Elves themselves, as I did when I traveled to Somerset Isle to continue my research, the majority will concede that Oriel is but Akatosh with a different name, colored by their own cultural beliefs. So maybe it comes as no surprise that the real theological dissension lies in Skyrim, among the Nord people, renowned as much for their stubbornness as they are for their hardiness and prowess on the fields of valor. When I journeyed to the stark White Province, I was surprised to find a people whose views on Akatosh are almost diametrically opposed to those of the Altmer. The majority of Nord people seem to believe that their Alduin of legend is not Akatosh, but another deity entirely. A great dragon, yes, but not the great dragon. Determined to get to the heart of this matter, I consulted with several Nords, chief among them, an old respected clan chief by the name of Bjorn Much Bloodied. And what surprised me most about those I talked to was not that they believed that in Alduin in Sid of Akatosh, but they recognized Alduin in addition to Akatosh. In fact, most children of Skyrim seem to view Akatosh in much the same way as I do. He is, in fact, the great dragon, first among the divines, perseverance personified, and, more than anything, a force of supreme good in the world. Alduin, they claim, is something altogether different. Whether or not he is actually a deity remains in question, but Alduin of Nord folklore is in fact a dragon, but one so ancient and so powerful he was dubbed the World Eater, and some accounts even have him devouring the souls of the dead to maintain his own power. Some other stories revolve around Alduin acting as some sort of dragon king, uniting the other dragons in a war against mankind, until he was eventually defeated at the hands of one or more brave heroes. It is hard to deny that such legends are compelling, but as both high priest and scholar, I am forced to ask that most important of questions: where is the evidence? The North of Skyrim place a high value on their oral traditions, and such is the core of their unreliability. A rumor passed around the Wayrest market square can change so dramatically in the course of a few simple hours that by the end of the day one might believe half of the city's residents were involved in any number of scandalous activities. How then is an educated, enlightened person possibly supposed to believe a legend that has been passed down by word of mouth only for hundreds or even thousands of years? The answer to such a question is simple: he cannot. And so, it is my conclusion that Alduin of Nord legend is in fact mighty Akatosh, whose story grew twisted and deformed through centuries of retelling and embellishment. Through no real fault of their own, the primitive peoples of Skyrim failed to understand the goodness and greatness of the great dragon, and it was this lack of understanding that formed the basis of what became, ironically, their most impressive creative achievement: Alduin, the World Eater, phantom of bedtime stories, and justification for ancient, if unimaginable, deeds. Shows what you know. You know nothing. The Bear of Markarth. The Bear of Markarth, The Crimes of Ulrich Stormcloak, by Arianas Arius, Imperial Scholar. Ulrich Stormcloak is considered a hero by many for his part in quelling the Forsworn uprising. It is said that when the Empire abandoned Skyrim and the natives of the Reach rebelled, undoubtedly due to the Nords' poor treatment of them, Ulrich Stormcloak and his militia was there to retake their land from the Forsworn. In all the bravado and epic yarns the skalds compose of his exploits, you would think Ulrich to be a giant of a man, equal to that of Tiber Septim in his cunning leadership and decisive actions. But the truth is far more revealing. Yes, from 4th Era 174 to 176, the Forsworn did in fact rule over the Reach as an independent kingdom from Skyrim. Yes, this was accomplished while the Empire was beset by Aldemiri Dominion forces and could not send the Legion to re-establish order. Yes, Ulrich Stormcloak did quell the rebellion without imperial assistance. That much is true. But what the bards often fail to tell in their stories is that the Forsworn kingdom was quite peaceful for those 2 years they were in power. True, some crimes were committed against former Nord landowners, often those accused of being the harshest towards their native workers, but on the whole the Forsworn ruled their lands fairly, and were making overtures to be recognized by the Empire as a legitimate kingdom. In the wake of the aftermath of the Great War, you can imagine the backlog on stately matters the Empire had. Before a peace treaty could be resolved with the Forsworn, a militia led by Ulrich Stormcloak sieged the gates of their capital, Markarth. What happened during that battle was war. But what happened after the battle was over is nothing short of war crimes. Every official who worked for the Forsworn was put to the sword, even after they had surrendered. Native women were tortured to give up their names of Forsworn fighters who had fled the city or were in the hills of the Reach. Anyone who lived in the city forsworn and Nord alike, were executed if they had not fought with Ulfric and his men when they had breached the gates. "You are with us, or you are against Skyrim," was the message on Ulric's lips as he ordered the deaths of shopkeepers, farmers, the elderly, and any child old enough to lift a sword that had failed in the call to fight with him. So when a grateful empire accepted Ulfric's victory and sent soldiers to reestablish the rule of law in the Reach, it was no surprise that he would demand to be allowed to worship Talos freely before the Legion would enter. With chaos running through the streets of Markarth and the reports of deaths rising every day, the Empire had no choice but to grant Ulfric and his men their worship. "We allow them to worship Talos in full violation of the white gold concordant with the Aldemiri Dominion, which recognized the elfin belief that Talos as a human cannot be one of the divines, in jeopardizing the treaty that so many sacrificed for during the Great War. The Empire was wrong. But what choice did they have, I ask you? Against the bear of Markarth, Ulrich Stormcloak, no, is not an answer." Little bit of history there. 3, well, 4 more, 3. Okay. Next up, Lost Legends. Let's do a quick check here. Check. Check here. Okay. Lost Legends. Lost Legends of Skyrim, as told by Talsgar the Elder, activist of Winterhold. The history of Skyrim is vast, predating even the most ancient records of man and Myr. Much has been lost, fallen to the ravages of war, or the turning of the ages. But nothing is ever truly forgotten. Where no records exist, legends and folk tales often offer us a key to the past, a way to pierce through the truths half-remembered in the minds of men. For generations, the people of Morthal have told whispered tales of the Pale Lady, a ghostly woman who wanders the northern marshes, forever seeking her lost daughter. Some say she steals children who wander astray. Others that her sobbing wail strikes dead all those who hear it. Behind these tales may lie a kernel of truth, for ancient records speak of Omiriel, a mysterious figure Ysgramor's heirs battled for decades and finally sealed away. Reachment tell the story of Phelan Red Eagle, an ancient king who rallied his people and drove back the armies of Cyrodiil with a flaming sword. Though accounts vary, they too seem to be based on an underlying truth. The imperial chronicles of Empress Hestra mention a rebel leader of that era who was eventually cornered and slain in battle at the cost of a full legion of men. But some tales prove far harder to analyze. Among scholars, perhaps the best known is the forbidden legend of the archmage Galdur. In the dawning days of the First Era, the story goes, there lived a powerful wizard by the name of Galdur. Wise, just, he was well known in the courts of King Harald and the Jarls of Skyrim, and his aid and counsel were sought by man and Myr alike. And then he was murdered. Some say one of his sons killed him. Others that the King Harald, jealous of his power, gave the order. But Galdur's 3 sons fled into the night, pursued by a company of Harald's best warriors and the Lord Gerimund, the king's personal battle mage. A great chase ensued, from the wilds of the Reach to the glacial north. One brother is said to have perished in the ruins of Folgunthur, at the foot of Solitude. The others were run to the ground soon thereafter, And once it was done, King Harald ordered every record of their murders destroyed, and Galdur's name and deeds were struck from the rolls of history. Even today, few sources remained, and no bard will tell the tale. Perhaps the truth yet remains in some ancient ruin, waiting to be unearthed, for nothing is ever truly forgotten. Ooh. Aha, I got a mission. Alright, can't read that yet. Alright, now I have the... How do I say that? The Arcturian heresy by the Underking Ysmir Kingmaker. With his god destroyed, Wulfharth finds it hard to keep his form. He staggers out of Red Mountain to the battlefield beyond. The world has shaken, and all of Morrowind is made of fire. A strong gale picks up and blows his ashes back to Skyrim. Wulfharth adopts, and it's adopted by the Nords then. Ysmir, the Grey Wind, the Storm of Kine. But through Lochhan, he lost his national identity. All he wants the Nords for is to kill the Tribunal. He raises a storm, sends in his people, and is driven back by the Tribunal forces. The Dunmer are too strong now. Wulfharth goes underground to wait and strengthen and reform his body anew. Oddly enough, it is Almalexia who disturbs his rest, summoning the Underking to fight alongside the Tribunal against Adasum Dir Kamal, the Akaviri demon. Wulfharth disappears after Adasum is defeated, and does not return for 300 years. It is the rumbling of the Greybeards that wake him. Though the Empire has crumbled, there are rumors that a chosen one will come to restore it. This new emperor will defeat the elves and rule a united Tamriel. Naturally, Wulfharth thinks he is the figure of prophecy. He goes directly to High Hrothgar to hear the Greybeards speak. When they do, Ysmir is blasted to ash again. He is not the chosen one. It is a warrior youth from High Rock. As the Grey Wind goes to find this boy, he hears the Greybeard's warning. Remember the color of betrayal, King Wulfharth. The Western Reach was at war. Chulicane, the king of Falkreath in West Cyrodiil, was in a bad situation. To make any bid at unifying the Colovian estates, he needed to secure his northern border, where the Nords and the Reachmen had been fighting for centuries. He allies with Skyrim at the Battle of Old Hroldan, leading his forces with Hjalti Earlybeard. Hjalti was from the island kingdom of Alcair in High Rock, and would become Tyr Septim, the first emperor of Tamriel. Hjalti was a shrewd tactician, and his small band of Colovian troops and Nord berserkers broke the Reachmen's line, forcing them back beyond the gates of Old Hroldan. A siege seemed impossible, as Hjalti could expect no reinforcements from Falkreath. That night a storm came and visited Hjalti's camp. It spoke with him in his tent. At dawn, Hjalti went up to the gates, and the storm followed just above his head. Arrows could not penetrate the winds around him. He shouted down the walls of Old Hroldan, and his men poured in. After their victory, the Nords called Hjalti Talos, or Storm Crown. Culhane, with his new invincible general, unifies West Cyrodiil in under a year. No one can stand before Hjalti's storms. The Underking knows that if Hijalti is to become Emperor of Tamriel, he must first capture the eastern heartland. Hijalti uses them both. He needs Culcain in the Colovian estates, where foreigners are mistrusted. It is obvious why he needs Ysmir. They march on the east. The battle mages surrender before their armies, and they take the citadel. Before Culcain can be crowned, Hijalti secretly murders him and his loyalist contingents. These assassinations are blamed on the enemies of Culcain, which, for political reasons, are still the Western Reach. Zurin Arctus, the Grand Battle Mage, not the Underking, then crowns Hijalti as Tiber Septim, new emperor of all Cyrodiil. After he captures the imperial throne, Septim finds the initial administration of a fully united Cyrodiil a time-consuming task. He sends the Underking to deal with imperial expansion into Skyrim and High Rock. Ysmir, mindful that it might seem as if Tiber Septim is in two places at once, works behind the scenes. This period of level-headed statesmanship and diplomacy, this sudden silence, henceforth known in the roaring tales of Talosism conquest, are explained away later. The assassination story is embroidered, and now it is popularly Talos' own throat that was cut. The human kingdoms are conquested, even Hammerfell, whose capture was figured to be an arduous task. The Underking wants a complete invasion, a task to battle their foreign wind spirits himself, but Tiber Septim refutes him. He has already made a better plan, one that will seem to legitimize his rule. Cyrodiil supports the losing side of a civil war and are invited in. Finally, the Empire can turn its eyes onto the elves. The Underking continues to press on Tiber Septim, the need to conquest Morrowind. The Emperor is not sure that it is a wise idea. He has heard of the Tribunal's power. The Underking wants his vengeance and reminds Tiber Septim that he is fated to conquer the elves, even the Tribunal. Arctus advises against the move, but Septim covets the ebony in Morrowind, as he sorely needs a source of capital to rebuild Cyrodiil after 400 years of war. The Underking tells him that with the Tribunal dead, Septim might steal the Tribunal's power and use it against the High Elves, certainly the oldest enemies of Lorkhan, predating even the Tribunal. Somerset Isle is the farthest thing from Tiber Septim's mind. Even then, he was planning to send Zurin Arctus to the king of Alienor to make peace. The Ebony need wins out in the end. The Empire invades Morrowind, and the Tribunal gives up. When certain conditions of armistice include not only a policy of non-interference with the Tribunal, but also, in the Underking's eyes, a validation of their religious beliefs, Ysmir is furious. He abandons the Empire completely. This was the betrayal the Greybeards spoke of, or so he thinks. Without the Underking's power, all ideas of conquering Tamriel vanish. Would have been nice, Septim thinks. But let's just worry about Cyrodiil and the human nations. Already there is a rebellion in Hammerfell. Pieces of Numidium trickle in, though. Tiber Septim, always fascinated by the dwarves, has Zurin Arctus research this grand artifact. In doing so, Arctus stumbles upon some of the stories of the War at Red Mountain. He discovers the reason the Numidium was made and some of its potential. Most importantly, he learns the Underking's place in the war, but Zurin Arctus was working from incomplete plans. He thinks it is the heart of Lorkhan's body that is needed to power the Numidium. While Zurin Arctus is raving about his discovery, the prophecy finally becomes clear to Tiber Septim. This Numidium is what he needs to conquer the world. It is his destiny to have it. He contacts the Underking and says he was right all along. They should kill the Tribunal, and they need to get together and make a plan. While the Underking was away, he realized the true danger of Dagoth-ur. Something must be done, but he needs an army, and his old one is available again. The trap is set. The Underking arrives and is ambushed by Imperial guards. He takes them on, Zur and Arctis using a soul gem on him. With his last breath, the Underking's heart roars a hole through the battle mage's chest. In the end, everyone is dead, and the Underking has reverted back to ash, and Tiber Septim strolls in to take the soul gem. When the Elder Council arrives, he tells them about the second attempt on his life, this time by his trusted battle mage, Zuram Arctis, who was attempting a coup. He has the dead guards celebrated as heroes, even the one who was blasted to ash. He warns Cyrodiil about the dangers within, and says he has a solution to the dangers without. The Mantella. The Numidium, while not the god Tiber Septim and the Dwemer hoped for, the Underking was not exactly Locan, after all. It does the job. After its work on Somerset Isle, a new threat appears, a rotting undead wizard who controls the skies. He blows the Numidium apart, but it pounds him into the ground with its last flailings, leaving only a black splotch. The Mantella falls into the sea, seemingly forever. Meanwhile, Tiber Septim crowns himself the first emperor of Tamriel. He lives until he is 108, the richest man in history. All aspects of his early reign are rewritten. Still, there are conflicting reports of what really happened, and this is why there is such confusion over such questions as, why does Alcairn claim to be the birthplace of Talos, while other sources say he came from Atmora? Why does Tiber Septim seem to be a different person after his first roaring conquests? Why does Tiber Septim betray his battle mage? Is the Mantella the heart of the battle mage, or is it the heart of Tiber Septim? Tiber Septim is succeeded by his grandson, Pelagius I. Pelagius is not the same caliber. In truth, he's a little nervous with all these provinces. Then an advisor shows up. I was friends with your grandfather, the Underking says. He sent me to help you run the Empire. So that's like a pseudo-truth retelling of the start of it, which has the Underking as like a spiritual figure. Guiding hand through history, as it were. Alright. Myths of Sheogorath. Alright. Myths of Sheogorath by Mimophonus. Sheogorath invents music. In the earliest of days, in a time when the world was still raw, Sheogorath decided to walk amongst the mortals. He donned his guise of gentleman with a cane, and moved from place to place, without being recognized. After 11 days and 11 nights, Sheogorath decided that life among the mortals was even more boring than his otherworldly existence. "What can I do to make their lives more interesting?" he said to himself. At that same moment, a young woman nearby commented wistfully to herself, "The sounds of the birds are so beautiful." Sheogorath silently agreed with her. Mortals could not make the beautiful and inspired calls of birds. Their voices were wretched and mundane. He could not change the nature of mortals, for that was the purview of other Daedric princes. However, he could give them tools to make beautiful sounds. Sheogorath took hold of the petulant woman and ripped her asunder. From her tendons he made lutes. From her skull and arm bones he made a drum. From her bones he made flutes. He presented these gifts to the mortals, and thus music was born. Sheogorath and King Lyandir. King Lyandir was known to be an exceedingly rational man. He lived in a palace that was a small, simple structure, unadorned with art and ugly to look upon. "I do not need more than this," he would say. "Why spend my gold on such luxuries when I can spend it on my armies or on great public works?" The kingdom prospered under his sensible rule. However, the people did not always share the king's sense of practicality. They would build houses that were beautiful to look upon, although not necessarily very practical. They devoted time and energy to works of art. They would celebrate events with lavish festivals. In general, they were quite happy. King Liondir was disappointed that more of them did not follow his example and led frugal, sensible lives. He brooded on this for many years. Finally, he decided that his subjects simply didn't understand how much more they could accomplish if they didn't waste time on those frivolous activities. Perhaps, he reasoned, they just needed more examples. The king decreed that all new buildings must be simple, unadorned, and no larger than was necessary for their function. The people were not happy about this, but they liked their king and respected the new law. In a few short years, there were more plain buildings than ornate ones. The citizens used the money saved to make and buy even more lavish art and hold even more excessive celebrations. Once again, King Liondir decided to provide them a strict example of how beneficial it would be to use their time and resources for more practical purposes. He banned all works of art in the city. The people were quite put out by this, but they knew that their king was doing what he thought was best for them. However, human nature is not so easily denied. In a few more years, the city was filled with plain, simple buildings and devoid of any sort of art. However, the people were now had even more money and time to devote to their parties and festivals. With a heavy heart, King Liondir decided that his people were to be treated like children. And like all children, they needed rules and discipline laid down by great figures of authority to make them understand what was truly important in life. He decreed that there should be no revelry in the city. Singing, dancing, and music were all banned. Even food and drink were limited to water and simple foodstuffs. The people had had enough. Revolt was out of question since King Liondir had a very well-trained and equipped army. They visited the shrines and temples in the droves, praying to all the gods, and even some of the Daedric princes, that King Liondir would revoke these new oppressive laws. Shegarath heard their pleas and decided to visit King Liondir. He appeared to the king in his dreams as a field of flowers, each with arms instead of petals, and the face of the mad god in the center. "I am the lord of the creative and the lord of the deranged. Since you have no use for my gifts of creativity, I have decided to bless you with an abundance of my other gift." From that day forward, every child born in the city was born into madness. Since infants do not reveal illness of the mind, it was several years before this was realized. The king's own son was among the victims, suffering from seizures and delusions. Yet King Liondir refused to change his ways. When his son, Glint, was 12 years old, he stabbed his father while Liondir was sleeping. With his dying breath, King Liondir asked, "Why?" His son replied, "It was the most practical thing I could do." The new young king ordered all the palace servants slaughtered. He ordered a grand festival to celebrate his new reign and the repeal of Liondir's laws. He served the crowds a stew made from the carcasses of the palace servants. He ordered the east-facing walls of every building to be painted red and the west-facing walls painted in stripes. He decreed that all citizens wear ornate masks on the back of their heads. He then burned down the palace and began construction of a new one. In the new palace, the young king ordered his personal chambers to not have any doors, for fear that small woodland creatures would attack him. He ordered that it have no windows, for fear that the sun and moon were jealous of him and plotting his death. And thus ended the line of King Liondir. The people of the city returned to their grand works of art and and raucous celebrations. They talked and acted as if they still had a living king, and even kept up the palace, using it to house and care for their mad children. Shagarath was mighty pleased with this outcome. From that day forward, the city was blessed with more than the normal number of gifted artists and deranged citizens. The Contest of Wills. A mighty wizard named Ravat was once walked the winds of time to find Lord Shagarath. His intent was to win a favor from this most capricious of the Daedric princes. Upon finding Shagarath, Ravat spoke humbly to him. Lord Shagarath, I beg a favor of you. I would gladly drive 1,000 men mad if you would but grant me the greatest magical powers. Fortunately for Ravat, Shagarath was in a playful mood. He proposed a game. I will grant your wish if you are still sane in 3 days. During that time, I will do my utmost to drive you mad. It shall be great fun. Ravat was not so certain that he liked this new deal. He had been really looking forward to driving 1,000 men mad. Lord Shagarath, I regret I have disturbed you with my shallow, selfish request. I withdraw my unfortunate plea and will humbly leave this place. Shagarath just laughed. Too late, mighty Ravat. The game is afoot, and you must play. Ravat fled, only to find that all exits from the Daedric realm were now sealed. He wandered aimlessly, constantly looking over his shoulder, jumping at every noise. Each moment brought new terror as he waited for Shagarath to begin. After 3 days, Ravat was convinced that every plant and animal was a tool of Shagarath. He hadn't eaten or drunk for fear that Shagarath had poisoned the food or drink. He hadn't slept for fear that Shagarath invaded his dreams, which was foolish, as dreams are the dominion of Vermina. May she grant us restful sleep. It was then that Shagarath appeared to him. Ravat cried out, You have set the whole world to watching me. Every creature and plant are doing your bidding to drive me mad. Shagarath replied, Actually, I have done nothing. You have driven yourself mad with your fears. Your delusions prove that you are truly deranged, and therefore I win. While you wanted to make 1,000 men mad, I only wanted to break one man's mind, yours. From that day forward, Ravat served Shagarath's every whim. Whenever daring travelers tried to approach Shagarath, Ravat warns them, Shagarath is already inside each of us. You have already lost. Dang, Shagarath, you get 2 books? You get 2 books about you? Alright. I can't read The Rising Threat Volume 3 yet because I have not read Volume 1. At least I don't think there's a Volume 1. I think there is. Yeah, there is a Volume 1. I have read Volume 1, but I need to read Volume 2, which I don't think is here. I don't think so. Oh yeah, that was Volume 1. That's Volume 4. We need to find Volume 2, but I don't think it's here. Alright, that was his bookshelf all done. Hi. Got any books in here? I know there was a big old library out here. I was eyeing. Ooh. Well, actually, just a few scattered books. Ah. What's my time at? Alright, we got a couple more minutes. Mother, Darkest, Cats of Skyrim. Chainsaw, Holds. That's volume. Oh, we have a brief history of the Empire, Volume 1. A brief scout. So we got a bookshelf there. Got some food. Got some more books over here. Got some stuff. Cool, we got a lot of books. So many books. So little time. Ah, before I do anything,
The Jarl is, as you can imagine, very busy. Perhaps I can assist you.
I have a sword for you from your daughter.
From Adrian? Ah, this must be that weapon for the Jarl. Poor girl. So eager to prove herself. I'll present it to Balgruuf when his mood is agreeable. Thank you. Please, take these few coins for services rendered.
Thank you. Oh, only 20? Oh, whatever.
Enjoy your visit to Dragonsreach.
Alright. Ode to the Tundra Striders. O mighty Tundra Strider, how you and your mighty tusked beast silhouette against the great orange expanse. Thundering footsteps herald your herd, man and beast blazing trail together, one in nature, each relying upon the other, more than just man and beast, but equals, who need one another to survive. How I long to run across the tundra in their mighty wake. That would truly be my greatest honor. The morning would be spent gathering dyes to paint our mammoths, and then carve the fiercest images into their tusks. Then it would be time for the skeever hunt. Our clubs would rain down upon the rat pests, smashing the life out of them. In the evening, could sit around the campfire, and I would regale those nearby with songs of their majesty and grace. They would let me sample of the mammoth's cheese, a food so foul yet with healing properties so great. We'd snack on the roasted skeever we'd freshly caught that day before laying upon the stars, under the stars to sleep. I'd slowly fade to dream, nestled in the radiating heat of mammoth fur, its cold-resisting properties keeping me snug. What a grand time we would have. Unknown. It's a short one. The Wisp Mother. 2 theories. Okay. The Wisp Mother, 2 theories, by Matthias Etienne. Among the folk tales from the northern reaches of Skyrim, few subjects are as popular as the Wisp Mother, ghostly women who lure unsuspecting travelers to their doom, steal children, and take vengeance on those who wronged them in life. Simple tales exist throughout Tamriel. The Melusana Sene of Stros Mackay, who lure ships to wreck on jagged shoals, then consume the souls of those aboard. The serpentine Chalas of Blackmarsh. The Amoranal of Valenwood. But unlike these mystic creatures, most scholars concede that Wisp Mothers actually exist. Though rare, credible reports of their sightings are simply too frequent to be ignored. Herein a synopsis of what can be gleaned from provincial legends and the dominant theories of what they may actually be. Wisp Mothers. Most tales agree on only a few basic facts about Wisp Mothers. They are always female. They take the form of human, some say elven, spirits, wreathed in mist and decaying rags. They have an affinity for frost magic, rarely appearing in more temperate climes. But beyond that, the tales differ wildly. Some say they are ghosts waiting to be laid to rest. Others that they are all the remains of the snow elves who once ruled Skyrim. Some say they are native to Shalmarsh, or the northernmost generally, but other tales mention them in forgotten places on mountaintops as far away as the Jarls. Most reputable scholars dismiss these stories, preferring instead to focus on the few documented sightings from recent years. From these, 2 dominant theories have emerged. Based on this extensive research into necromancy and Cyrodiil's Aelid culture, Master Sadrine Sarethi posits that Wisp Mothers are a necrologic state, a type of lichdom developed by a now forgotten First Era culture. Under this theory, these are no mere ghosts. They are a cult of powerful sorceresses who achieved eternal life through undead. Alternatively, Lydet Villian of Synod contends that wisp mothers are not undead at all, but rather elemental manifestations arising out of Nirn itself. By noting several similarities to Spriggans and ice wraiths, she contends that wisp mothers are essentially elemental personifications of snow or mist, innately wielding the power of their element instead of manipulating it through conventional sorcery. Wisps. In most accounts, the victim is initially drawn to the wisp mother by glowing ghostly lights. Although initially passive, these creatures later attack in tandem with her, distracting the victim and draining their energy. Popular legend holds that these are the spirits of the wisp mother's previous victims. These spirits strengthen her, so anyone hoping to destroy her must first release the souls of those she has killed. To scholars, this description immediately recalls the Will of the Wisp, a rare and dangerous swamp denizen of southern Tamriel. Oddly, Cyrodiilic legends invariably refer to wisps as lone predators, while these appear to exist as some sort of symbiotic relationship with others of their kind. Villian argues that these wisps are a subspecies of true wisps, scavengers that lure prey to the wisp mother and share in the psychoethereal energy released by her kills. As codependent scavengers, they most likely lack the formidable defenses of their predatory cousins, rendering them far more vulnerable. Alternatively, Sarathi posits that these wisps are merely emanations or conjurations of the wisp mother, and are not free living creatures. This is supported by one incident in which an adventurer reportedly killed a wisp mother directly, only to observe the remaining wisps immediately perish as well, though the source is considered highly unreliable. In summary, scholarly opinion about wisp mothers and wisps is sharply divided, and is likely to remain so for some time. But all sources agree on one crucial point. These are highly dangerous foes and should be avoided at all costs. Darkest Darkness by Anonymous. Drink some water. Darkest Darkness by Anonymous. In Morrowind, both worshippers and sorcerers summon lesser Daedra and bound Daedra as servants and instruments. Most Daedric servants can be summoned by sorcerers only for very brief periods, within the most fragile and tenuous frameworks of command and binding. This fortunately limits their capacity for mischief, though in only a few minutes. Most of these servants can do terrible harm to their summoners as well as their enemies. Worshippers may bind other Daedric servants to this plane through rituals and pacts. Such arrangements result in the Daedric servant remaining on this plane indefinitely, or at least until their bodily manifestations on this plane are destroyed, precipitating their supernatural essences back into the oblivion. Whenever Daedra are encountered at Daedric ruins or in temples or in tombs, they are almost invariably long-term visitors to our plane. Likewise, lesser entities bound by their Daedra lords into weapons and armor may be summoned for brief periods or may persist indefinitely so long as they are not destroyed and banished. The class of bound weapons and bound armors summoned by temple followers and conjurers are examples of short-term bindings. Daedric artifacts like Maroon's Razor and the Mask of Clavicus Vile are examples of long-term bindings. The Tribunal Temple of Morrowind has incorporated the veneration of Daedra as lesser spirits subservient to the immortal Almsivi. The the Truian godhead of Amalexia, Soltha, Sil, and Vivek. These subordinate Daedra are divided into the good Daedra and the bad Daedra. The good Daedra have willingly submitted to the authority of Amsivi. The bad Daedra are rebels who defy Amsivi, treacherous kin who are more often adversaries than allies. The good Daedra are Boethia, Azura, and Mafala. The hunger is a powerful and violent lesser Daedra associated with Boethia, father of plots. This a sinuous, long-limbed, long-tailed creature with a beast-skulled head, noted for its paralyzing touch and its ability to disintegrate weapons and armor. The winged Twilight is a messenger of Azura, goddess of dusk and dawn. Winged Twilights resemble the feral harpies of the West, though the feminine aspects of the winged Twilights are more ravishing, and their long, sharp-hooked tails are immeasurably more deadly. Spider Daedra are the servants of Mafala, taking the form of spider humanoid centaurs with a naked upper head, torso, and arms of human proportions, mounted on the 8 legs of armored carapace of a giant spider. Unfortunately, these Daedra are so fierce and irrational that they cannot be trusted to heed the commands of the spinner. As a consequence, few sorcerers are willing to either summon or bind such creatures at Morrowind. The bad Daedra are Maroon's Dagon, Malakath, Shagarath, and Maligbal. 3 lesser Daedra are associated with Maroon's Dagon, the agile and pesky scamp, the ferocious beast-like Clanfear, and the noble and deadly Dremora. The crocodile-headed humanoid Daedra called the Daedroth is a servant of Maligbal, while the giant but dim-witted Ogrim is a servant of Malakath. Shagarath's lesser Daedra, the Golden Saint, a half-clothed human female in appearance, is highly resistant to magic and a dangerous spellcaster. Another type of lesser Daedra often encountered in Morrowind is the Atronach or Elemental Daedra. Atronachs have no binding kinship or alignments with the Daedra lords, serving one realm or another at whim, shifting sides according to seduction, compulsion, or opportunity. Oh, so the Atronach are actually like Daedra. Interesting. Well, that's the reason why they're a conjuration. Cats of Skyrim. Ooh, kitties. What's my time? This might be my last book of the day. Cats of Skyrim. A report by Altuil. I don't pronounce these names correctly. Aldetuel. I have been sent to this frigid wasteland to catalog and study any on its indigenous cats, which has so far been uneventful. After months of wandering, I have so far only encountered some variations of the basic species. In my travels, I have encountered several Khajiit outcasts from their clans that have taken up residence in Skyrim. They have been most unhelpful, probably for fear I'd expose their locations. I can't say I'm surprised that there are few Khajiit here. It's cold and unwelcoming. Saber cats are basic giant cats that have evolved 2 dangerously sharp front teeth. The average saber cat has reddish-brown fur, which is usually used to blend into grassy regions, but I have observed them skulking and sleeping on rocks, so I don't believe the fur is for camouflage. Primary attacks of the saber cat are its biting attack, but it can also briefly rear up to attack with its front claws. I have also seen it pounce forward on its prey in a particularly powerful attack. The snowy version of the saber cat has spotted white fur, which I believe is used more for stalking than its cousin in the plains. The tooth of the cat is rumored to be useful in potions and that restore the imbiber's stamina, as well as a potion that will temporarily give a more keen eye for smithing. A skillful hunter can usually salvage the pelts and teeth of their kill, but report that the meat is tasteless and not fit to eat. It's a short one. Okay, have I read Brief History of the Empire, Volume 1? Okay, I have not. Something tells me it's not going to be a brief history. What's my time? Alright, I just reached the hour mark.
Now where is it?
It takes a while to make a dress, Dagny. You have to be patient.
But I don't want to be patient. I want to dress right now. Father promised.
All you ever do is complain about what you want. You're a spoiled baby.
I'm going to tell Father you said that. He'll tan your hide for sure.
Alright, kids. Oh, there's a... How many children are here? Somebody's been busy. Oh, and I know there's more books up here, right? Oh, no rest for the wicked. Oh, there's a lot. Now the question is, do I just continue reading until I can't read anymore, or do I go do the mission and then come back to do some reading? I think, because I do have to go out and then I have to come back, you know, with the Dragonstone. Okay, let me just, I think, make a note of all the books. So I have...
Another wanderer, here to lick my father's boots. Good job.
Okay, so we finished that shelf. So we did that. We got this shelf. We got the thing 2 up there.
Divines bless you. May the ground you walk quake as you pass.
Thank you. Got
One
2.
of the new servants? Remember that I like my meat rare.
Uh-huh, hon. I'm not a servant. Alright, so they got some stuff up there. It's down here. Any books? Oh, there's a book down here. Brief History of Volume 2, which there's a Volume 1 up there, so I can read that one later. More books. Some of them are ones I've read before, so we'll see. Oh, did I read part 1? Yeah, we got some down here. I think I read Dream of Sovngarde. Jarl's Quarters. Creepy wooden door back here. What's here? Dungeon.
All this standing around is rubbish. We should be taking the fight to the Stormcloaks.
Okay. So, I think what I'll do next time is I'm gonna do the mission, you know, with the Dragonstone, because I think I'll make a thing of I can't read like books in a row for more than 2 episodes.
Good job.
Because then it'll be a little boring to watch. So, okay, next time, we're gonna just go and continue.
That you can't cook good sweet rolls in the skeever hole of a city.
Oh boy. Alright. I got a better look at my character here. Come on. Alright. So, been doing some good reading so far. There's only so much I can read before it starts to get a little boring. I know. So next time, I'm getting a little bored to just reading. And there are a lot of books here, so I need to pace myself. So next time we are going to do, I think we're going to go to Bleak Falls Barrow, get the Dragonstone, read anything along the way, which there shouldn't be a lot. And then we'll come back with the Dragonstone. Before we go to get the dragon, we will, I think, read at least that bookshelf and those bookshelves. And other books that we can find. Not too much. Again, I will only read as much as 2 full episodes of reading before going to do something else. And then coming back to read some more. But yeah, this will be more on Scholar Survival. We're going to be focusing a little bit more on the survival part next time. And I hope you'll join me then. So yeah, until then, take care everybody. I'll see you in the next episode. Alright, ciao ciao.